How's it going, everyone? And welcome to Season 1, Episode 0 of the 9 Innings Podcast with your host, Alec Pecano. On today's show, I will be going over my MLB free agency predictions, spanning from predicting what kind of contracts starting pitchers will get to outfielders to the infielders, and making some trade predictions and roster predictions. But to start off the show, we are going to start with my free agency predictions for pitchers. And the top name on the market right now is Corbin Burnes. And one of the teams interested, there's 3 teams in my book that are heavily interested in Corbin Burnes. It's the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and the Giants. And I think he's going to end up signing with the Boston Red Sox on a 10-year, $315 million contract. We've already seen the Red Sox make one big move for pitching, and it was trading for Garrett Crochet. I stand to think that they're not done making moves for pitching. And I think this next move could be for Corbin Burnes. Like I said, 10 years, $315 million. The next pitcher on the market is Jack Flaherty. And I think he's going to go back to the Tigers on a 3-year, somewhere around $80 to $85 million. The Tigers proved that they could make the playoffs. And they did get a big return for Flaherty when they traded him last season. But I think signing somewhere around a 3-year deal for Flaherty to go back to Detroit makes a lot of sense. And he just feels like a guy that he fit well with Detroit. And I feel like him going back to the Tigers makes a lot of sense. Next, we've got Griffin Canning. And this feels like a Rays guy to me. 2 years at $34 million. This just feels like somebody the Rays would go out and sign and try to fix, like they've done numerous times with other pitchers. Zach Littell Griffin Canning's always been a starter. He's just had trouble with command and pinpointing and finding the strike zone. And what do the Rays do really well? They fix pitchers that have had strike zone trouble throwing strikes. And Griffin Canning is a perfect example. So I think him ending up with the Rays makes the most sense. The next one is Roki Sasaki. And I see him either going to the Padres or the Reds on a 4-year, and I know this is going to be a lot of money from a kid coming over from Japan. 4 years, $90 million deal. I could see him signing that with the Padres or the Reds because his agent came out and said he wants to go to a spot. He wants a soft landing spot coming over from Japan. So that would take the Dodgers out of it. That would take the Red Sox out of it. The Yankees, the Astros, because those are big market teams. His agent came out and said he wants to go to a small market team. Small to mid-market team, which would be the Padres or the Reds. And the last guy for the pitching side of it is John Means. And I think he's going to sign a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Astros, because the Astros are probably looking at dumping off Framber Valdez, and you'll hear me talk about Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman later on, and that's going to open some money. And Lance McCullers is going to be out half the season. Means is also recovering from Tommy John as well. But I think a 1-year prove-it deal for Means, then he goes back into free agency next season, would be a good fit for the Astros. Now we get to the infield. So that was pitching. Now we get to the infielders, and we're going to start at first base with Pete Alonso. And yes, there's rumors out there that the Yankees were interested in him at some point, but those rumors have died down. I ultimately think he's going to go back to the Mets on an 8-year, $198 million deal. Yes, I know the Mets just signed Soto, which I thought that was going to happen. And I also think they're going to re-sign Pete Alonso to, like I said, 8 years, $198 million. Now we get to Christian Walker. And the Mariners need a first baseman. I see all these rumors out here about him wanting the Yankees wanting him and all these other teams. I think what makes the most sense here is him going to Seattle on a 6-year, $144 million contract. He would fit perfectly in T-Mobile Park. And the Mariners need first base. And you'll hear me talk about one of their pitchers later on in the podcast episode. But, so that's Christian Walker. Then we get down to Goldschmidt. And I think he's going to Minnesota, and he's going to sign a 3-year, $84 million deal with the Twins. Twins are another team that needs first base. They were playing Jose Miranda at first base. They were playing... They had a revolving door over at first base. Kirilloff played some first base. Miranda played first base. They need a guy that can be stable over there and play first base for at least the next 2 to 3 years. And I think that could be Paul Goldschmidt. And the last first baseman that we're going to talk about is Justin Turner. I think he signs a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Tigers. The Tigers have also been interested in a couple of the other names I talked about, but I think they're going to go after Justin Turner and sign Justin Turner to a 1-year deal. Now we get to second base, and we've got some names here at second base that are interesting. First one, Gleyber Torres. How hilarious would this be? I think Gleyber Torres signs with the Red Sox and does the most funny thing and signs a 1-year, Gleyber Torres says a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Red Sox to be their second baseman this year. Then you've got Hassan Kim. I think, and briefly back to Gleyber Torres. He needs to go somewhere. I mean, I know he might want to go to a smaller market team where the media is not on top of him all the time. But I also think Boston would be the perfect fit for Gleyber Torres. The green monster in left field. And let me know what you think about any of these free agents and where you think they might sign. But back to Hassan Kim. I think Hassan Kim's going to sign a 4-year, $94 million deal with the Cleveland Guardians. The Guardians need a second baseman. They just got rid of Andres Jimenez, and I think they would be willing to spend a little bit of cash on Hassan Kim. And Hassan Kim is a top-notch defender. And if you're wondering where Jimenez got traded, he got traded to Toronto. Next, we've got Brendan Rodgers former Rockies top prospect, second baseman. I think Mr. Rogers is going to sign a 1-year, $6 million deal with the San Francisco Giants to have a nice pairing up the middle with Willie Adames, who also signed with the San Francisco Giants a couple weeks ago. And I think that this could be a good deal for Rogers because he goes somewhere where he could play every day. It seemed like he was kind of falling out of favor in Colorado because they had some younger guys that were coming up through the minors. And it just felt like Rogers wasn't going to see any more playing time. And I feel like he's going to get that playing time in San Francisco because they need second base because Tyro Estrada signed with a new team. And then the last one is Joey Wendell. And I might get laughed at for this. I think he's going to sign a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Oakland Athletics. Well, they're not the A's anymore. The San Francisco, whatever they are now, in Sacramento A's with the Sacramento Athletics. And now we get to shortstops. And you've got a couple names on the shortstop market that are interesting to me. The first one is Paul DeJong. I think Paul DeJong, he's another guy that seems like somebody the Rays would want. And I think Paul DeJong signs a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Rays. Not necessarily to be the starting shortstop, but maybe to play in a strong side platoon with like Taylor Walls and whoever else the Rays, eventually maybe Carson Williams if they bring him up, or Braden Taylor, because you got Junior Caminero over at third base. Then you've got Nick Ahmed, and I think he signs a 2-year, $17 million deal with the Minnesota Twins. Yes, I know they have Carlos Correa, but what have we seen the last couple years? Correa cannot stay healthy. Correa's always hurt. Carlos Correa is always hurt. He always gets hurt, and I think the Twins realize, okay, maybe Correa, if we trade him, Nick Ahmed, we could sign to like a 2-year, 3-year deal to be our shortstop until we have one of our prospects come up. Then you've got Mason McCoy. I don't know very much about Mason McCoy. I think he's like a minor league free agent. And I think he signs a 3-year, $48 million deal to be the shortstop. Okay. So, John, I think you'll hear later on who I think is getting Kyle Tucker. In spoiler, it is not the Yankees, but I do think the Yankees have the prospects to get a Cody Bellinger. But what's your outfield going to look like? I know Judge is going to be in center. Where are you going to play? Answer me this question. Where are you playing Jazz Chisholm next year? Is he going to play third base or is he going to play the outfield? And no, I don't think you get Kyle Tucker. But like I said, I do think you get Bellinger. Anyway, back to the shortstops. Like I said, Mason McCoy is going to sign a 3-year, $48 million deal with the Brewers to replace Willie Adames. And now we get to third base, and I have 3 third basemen on here. The first one is Alex Bregman. I think Alex Bregman signs a 9-year. Yankee fans, close your ears because you're not going to like where I have Bregman going. I think Bregman signs a 9-year, $368 million deal with the Red Sox. Yes, the Red Sox need third base. Well, not necessarily. I mean, they have Devers, but I do stand to think that Devers would be willing to move to first base or DH to bring in a guy like Bregman. And I think the Boston fit for Bregman is the most perfect fit there could be. Then we've got Nick Madrigal. And to replace Bregman in Houston, I think Nick Madrigal signs a 3-year, $48 million deal with the Astros. Yes, you heard me say that right. I think he's signing with the Astros. And then we got Josh Rojas. Josh Rojas will sign a 2-year, $40 million deal with the Yankees to be their new third baseman. And yes, the Yankees do need third base because I believe they're either going to put Jazz Chisholm at second base if they don't get a second baseman, or they're going to put Chisholm in the outfield and probably left field or right field because Judge is in center. Speaking of free agent predictions for the outfield, here they are. I've got Jerickson Profar signing a 4-year, $96 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. Now, Red Sox fans, I want to hear your opinion, in all MLB fans. I'd like to hear your opinion on these free agency predictions. But I think the Red Sox could use another outfielder. Jared Duran's locked in center field. Wilyer Abreu's probably locked in right field, which means left field is up for the taking. And I think Jerickson Profar would fit perfectly in left field in Boston. Then you've got Austin Hayes. And this, to me, feels like the perfect signing for the Cincinnati Reds. On a 3-year, $48.5 million deal. The Reds need some outfield help. And I think getting them an outfielder like Austin Hayes would help accelerate their, I'm not going to say rebuild, but them wanting to get to the playoffs. Because they were so close last year, but they fell off at the end of the season. The next outfielder I have is Tommy Pham, and I think he signs a 1-year, listen to the money I'm going to give Tommy Pham, 1-year, $16 million deal to be an outfielder for the Los Angeles Angels, where he could probably get traded at the deadline if the Angels are not in the playoff hunt. And then the last outfielder, and yes, that makes a lot of sense because the Angels do need outfielders. Trout's in center, but he's going to need a couple of days off here or there. Mickey Moniak's in right field. Left field is anybody's ball game. Anybody can take left field. And I think if they sign Tommy Pham, he could be your left fielder till probably the trade deadline. Then you trade him to a contender. Next, we've got Dylan Carlson. And this, to me, feels like another signing for the Reds. His deal's a little cheaper. It's 3 years, $25 million. Like I said, the Reds need outfielders. You've got Jake Fraley, who could play all 3 outfield spots. You need somebody that can solidify themselves as your everyday left fielder. And I believe that is Dylan Carlson. After I saw what he did for the Rays and how he was a revelation with the Rays, all the home runs he hit, I believe the Cincinnati Reds need to go out and sign him. And the final outfielder we're going to talk about today is Harrison Bader. I think he's going to sign a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Mariners. And now we get to other MLB predictions. Trades, roster predictions. We're going to start with trades. And the first one is I have the Red Sox trading for Luis Castillo from the Mariners. That's the rumor out there. The Red Sox really want Castillo. And I think the package that the Mariners will receive back is Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, and plus 2 other prospects. Whether they be A-ball guys, AA, maybe a couple guys at AAA. We saw what they had to give up for Crochet. You got to imagine the package for a guy like Castillo is going to be a lot steeper because he's got a lot more control left, team control. And yes, I think the Red Sox this is an all-in move for the Red Sox. The next trade I have is the Rays trading, and this has been rumored, Jeffrey Springs to the Tigers. And the package the Rays will receive back is Jackson Jobe, Ty Madden, and a catcher, Dylan Dingler. I don't think that, and the key here is Springs does have control. He has 2 more years of team control. And that's, if you're going to trade for somebody, that's what you want. And he's under contract for 2 more years as well. And he can help the Tigers along in their rebuild with all the young pitchers they got, like Mize, Skubal, Reese Olson, Sawyer Clayton Long, Ty Madden, if they don't want to, Ty Madden or Jackson Jobe, if they don't want to include them in the potential package. The next trade is, again, it's a Rays. No, it's Kyle Tucker, and I think he will be traded to the Chicago Cubs. And the Astros receive Isaac Paredes, Seiya Suzuki, and Cam Smith. And I think you get 2 roster players, and the Astros were really interested in a guy like Isaac Paredes during the trade deadline. The Cubs beat the Astros to Paredes. And I think that's going to be the starting spot for this trade is Paredes and maybe Seiya Suzuki. And then you throw in Cam Smith. Another trade I have is the Rays, and this is the last trade I have, is the Rays trading Yandy Diaz to the Yankees for Chase Hampton, Oswaldo Cabrera, and Spencer Jones. And Yankee fans, please tell me how you feel. How would you feel about getting Yandy Diaz? And as a Rays fan, I would hate to lose him, but it's probably getting close to time for Yandy to go because we've got a couple prospects that could crack the opening day roster next year or the year after. And one of them is a first baseman. And I will talk about who that is in a second. But now we get to the last part of the show. And that is where I cover some roster predictions for different MLB teams, starting with the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays have 4 guys. They have a bunch of guys that I think could make the roster. And we're going to start with Jake Mangum. They just added him to the 40-man roster earlier this offseason. And what makes me think he might make the roster as like a 4th or 5th outfielder is that they traded Jose Siri away to the Mets. So that tells me that the Rays really think highly of Jake Mangum. Another guy that could make the opening day roster or be called up shortly after opening day is Chandler Simpson. He's not your prototypical leadoff hitter. He does get on base a lot, but he also steals a lot of bases. And that's the reason I think he could make the opening day roster for the Rays this year. Next, we've got Xavier Isaac, who, when the Rays drafted him, all of MLB was looking at the Rays like they were insane, and they didn't know what they were talking about. And I think the Rays do know what they were doing by drafting Xavier Isaac. And I think if he shows out in spring training, come back to season 1, episode 0 of the podcast, of the 9 innings podcast, and go back to this part of the show where I said Xavier Isaac might make the opening day roster. And then you've got Braden Taylor and Carson Williams. Both middle infielders, and I feel like both of them are really close to being called up. I thought Carson Williams was going to be called up last year. I think if either one of them or both show out during spring training and have a good showing, that the Rays are going to really have a hard time sending him back down to AAA. Now we get to the Red Sox. And I've got 3 guys on here for the Red Sox. Number 1, Miguel Blaze. He's an outfielder. And I think he might make their opening day roster because they have a couple holes in the outfield. I'm looking at left field. And why do you think I had 2 different outfielders go? Why do you think I had Jerickson Profar going to the Red Sox? Because they need a left fielder, and I think I'm pretty sure Miguel Blaze can play left field. Now, these last 2 guys. The first one is Marcelo Meyer. I think if Marcelo Meyer is not involved in a trade, he will be on the Red Sox opening day roster as their starting shortstop, because I think if they don't get a second baseman in free agency, they will probably move Trevor Story over to second base. And the last Red Sox guy is Roman Anthony. He's another one. If he's not involved in a trade if he's not involved in the package for Luis Castillo, I think he will be on the Red Sox opening day roster. And then the last and final 2 guys are both Rockies, Chase Dollander and Zach Veen. First with Dollander, I am pretty positive that he will either make the opening day roster or be called up within the first 3 months of the season. And I don't think there's any way, if he has a good spring, there's no way you send him back down. Zach Veen, injury the last couple of years in the minors. I think he makes the roster for the Rockies because they do need outfield help. I mean, they've got Jordan Beck. Charlie Blackmon's gone. So they have an opening in center field. No, they have Brenton Doyle out in center field. They have an opening in right field and left field. And you could put Jordan Beck in left field and put Zach Veen in right field. And if you haven't already subscribed, please remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any new uploads of the 9 Innings Podcast, the college football podcast with me solo, and the college football podcast with Bradley and me, or the NFL, the Pro Football Podcast. But that's going to wrap it up today. I will see everybody back here. I think I have a couple videos tomorrow. I will see y'all tomorrow night.